Ms Robertson is the last speaker in the open debate.
Thank you very much, Deputy Presiding Officer, and I will bow to your discipline. I'm not convinced that my own speech will be as disciplined as it should be, so if I don't manage to finish it, please believe me that this is a debate that will continue. I hear people have said that this is a good debate. From where I sit, it may have been interesting, but if you don't win the argument, what is left behind is a sense of grave, I have to say, grave disappointment that I couldn't persuade the Chamber. And I don't think that the people who disagreed with me believe that women shouldn't be protected. I don't make that case. But I do think we made the wrong decision yesterday. And as someone committed to equality all of my life, I regret very much that I will not be able to vote for this bill at the end of the day. And I hope that nobody in this chamber or anywhere else takes that as meaning that I want anybody in our communities to face hate, disadvantage or abuse. It is not for that reason, but it is because this bill does not address a fundamental problem. In real time, as we were debating this legislation yesterday, we were hearing on the news of yet another victim of male violence. And in real time, women were taken to social media to describe what we do every day to keep ourselves safe, whether we're walking in a park or running or getting a bus. That is the reality of women's lives, and that is the reality that is not being addressed in this bill. And instead, I was subjected again today to a lecture about how I don't care enough, that women don't care enough about people who are the victims of abuse. I am told that denying a cross-dresser the protection of this bill is unacceptable. And I say this, we know that cross-dressers, even Tim Hopkins himself, said it was a lifestyle choice, not a matter of identity. And it was a problem that could have been solved by including women in this legislation. And I'm not saying that the sex aggravator would solve everything. We are women. We know that signals are not enough, but it would have been a starting point for the work that the working group would do. And we could not even agree on a definition of what sex is. And this matters because the truth is that there is now a live debate about whether, in fact, there is two sexes or not. And I respect all sides of that debate, but I have to tell John Finney the term intersex is offensive to many people in the communities who suffer from difference in sexual characteristics. They do not regard themselves as intersex. But actually, the more important point is this. If people believe that there are more than two sexes, if they want to change the law, then change the law. Make the argument. But in the world I inhabit, you don't both argue a position which is at odds with the law, and might I say the science, and resist having that debate in public and making a decision, and denounce those without changing the law who state what the current law is. That is why the amendment on defining what sex mattered so much. It's not a matter for the working group to define that. It's a matter for us coming together and having that debate as a community and as a society. And I also recognise the deep-held views of the Cabinet Secretary and his experience. I do not diminish it one bit. I do not diminish anyone who suffers disadvantage because of where they find themselves. But I plead with him, if it is reasonable to pause on women, why are we not pausing on these other complex areas? It cannot be that you will argue both. We can wait a year for women who we know today are experiencing violence or dealing with abuse precisely because of their sex, but that we can't wait, and that those who will not vote for the bill will be guilty of encouraging racism and disadvantage. Those two things are not possible to argue at the same time. And I say this in conclusion. What is behind this? We're dancing on all sorts of arguments here, but what is behind this is that in our communities now, people face discrimination, disadvantage, abuse, and women are part of that. And there are other folk who understand what that is like. And this bill will fail if we do not go beyond sending signals. I regret very much it won't even signal support for women. But if we settle for the signal, we will not be doing the heavy lifting of what government is actually about, which is educating, challenging, supporting, working with people in our communities that they might come together and making real, in law, our aspiration to a fairer Scotland. I regret very much that at the end of the day, when I vote with my absolute conviction today that this bill does not address these problems, I have no doubt that I will be characterised as someone full of hate. Please believe me that the women who want this legislation to be changed, those who have highlighted their concerns, aspire to the same as those who will vote for it. But we have to wrestle with the fact that even as a signal, this legislation does not even address the lived experience of the women in this place. It's not good enough. I am sorry, and I regret being so forthright to tell me that I spoke well. Women have spoken well through the generations, and they are speaking now, and they are telling you what their lived experience is. This Parliament needs to tackle these problems. They need to tackle the argument that is at dispute and is highly contentious, not hide it away and denounce those who are not prepared to go along with that. I respect everyone in this chamber. I trust they will respect the women in this chamber and beyond this chamber who continue to say this is not good enough. We need to think again, get our heads around the complexities of it and get legislation that genuinely protects all of those who experience hatred, disadvantage and abuse simply for being who they are.
Thank you, Ms Lamont. And I know members will understand why I extended the time for Ms Lamont, but the rest of you, no. So, Shona Robertson, please.